The legendary drag queen Stacey-Coombe once said that she is your favourite drag queen's favourite drag queen, and she is 100% correct in this statement. And that phrase is the inspiration behind this really silly idea I have for today's video. Because if we know your favourite drag queen's favourite drag queen, what is your favourite musical character's favourite musical? All of these musical characters have a very different style, personality, that means that they would be attached or enjoy a different type of musical. So today I asked you on Instagram for your favourite musical characters, and I have assigned each of them their favourite musical. This is your favourite musical character's favourite musical. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie, I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet, and I am earning that title today. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do versus brackets and rankings, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. But let's dive in to your favourite musical character's favourite musical. This concept, it just makes me laugh so much. It's so silly. So I got a wide variety of musical characters from you guys, and I enjoy this variety. I also pitched some of my own favourite musical characters, favourite musicals. And feel free to play along. If you hear a character and you're like, I have a better musical for them, pitch it in the comments down below. Maybe this could be a series. I don't know. Probably not, but maybe. Let's start with one of my favourite musicals, Waitress. A lovely musical. Now, I did consider maybe doing Jenna. I think Jenna would enjoy the classics, you know, but I feel like there is two characters in this musical who have a more defined favourite musical that I can pitch immediately, and that is Dawn and Ogie. Now, to find out what their favourite musical is, we need to look at their personalities, we need to look at what they enjoy, and what is the thing that links Dawn and Ogie? What is the thing that actually, like, sparks their relationship in the first place and sets them off on finding out that they are accidentally perfect for each other? And that is, of course, the war reenactments that they both enjoy taking part in. So I think it's very obvious that Dawn and Ogie would love 1776. I mean, it's literally the stories, the American history, the things that they love to reenact. Like, it's perfect for them. We could also say maybe Hamilton. However, I feel like Hamilton's style doesn't really match Dawn and Ogie's personalities. I think they enjoy rapping along to it, but not well. You know, they'd be butchering that material, but they enjoy it for the most part. But I feel like if you ask them for like one, if you said, what is the favourite? I think they would say 1776. Another character I thought about, and you guys, loads of people said this character, Elle Woods. And of course, Elle Woods is the musical character. If you want to find like a strong female character in a musical, you go to Legally Blonde. The adaptations that they made from the film really, really work, really define Elle Woods in that musical. It makes sense that she is a favourite. And I think we just need to look at other musicals with strong female leads for someone like Elle Woods. I think we're looking at her personality. You know, she comes from this background of like the Valley Girl stereotype, but she's strong. She knows what she wants. She pushes for herself in many different ways. I feel like, especially towards the end of the musical, maybe Elle Woods would enjoy something like Anne Juliet. I feel like Elle Woods would appreciate going into a musical where she knows the music as well. I know the era does not line up in the slightest bit, but let's just pretend Elle Woods is a little bit older. We can set Legally Blonde in a modern day setting. Yeah, it'd still work. I feel like she'd appreciate Juliet's storyline in that musical, what, you know, she's pushing for, especially towards the end of the musical where Elle Woods is kind of fighting for herself. You know, early Elle Woods, I don't think would relate as much to Juliet because, you know, she's kind of pining for the boy. Actually, they have very similar storylines if you think about it, because they both start the musical in this position of like, Romeo, Warner, and then kind of move on and find their own way and their own direction and make their own choices. Yeah, the parallels are paralleling. I feel like Elle Woods would enjoy Anne Juliet a lot. Jamie New from Everybody's Talking About Jamie was another character who's brought up quite a bit, and I love Everybody's Talking About Jamie. Jamie, I think, you know, is a character who would love the divas. I feel like if you gave them like any jukebox musical of a diva, he would enjoy it. Think of your Cher shows, think of like Drag the Musical as well, like the one that's in the States right now. I know that's a different thought, but I feel like Jamie would appreciate Drag the Musical, especially as an aspiring drag queen. One of the musicals I said that maybe Jamie would enjoy and associate with is maybe something like Why Am I So Single? I think that musical is such an explosion of queer themes and ideas on stage that I think Jamie would really appreciate that. I also feel like Jamie would appreciate a musical with good costume design. Maybe something like Devil Wears Prada, maybe something like Moulin Rouge. I feel like Jamie as a seamstress as well would enjoy like good craftsmanship on stage. You know, he's a performer, he's a drag queen, he loves that kind of style. I feel like anything with drag queens, you could easily throw a Kinky Boots his way, you could throw a Drag the Musical, you could throw all of these different shows that feature drag queens, and Jamie would love it. But I feel like if I'm going to say like a favourite musical, I would probably say Why Am I So Single? Not because he's so single. Actually, he is in the musical, but stop that. Speaking of Why Am I So Single, Oliver and Nancy from Why Am I So Single literally have a canonical favourite musical. It is canon to the musical that they love Oliver. That's the musical that they named themselves after. I mean, also the twist at the end is that that's also the Toby Marlowe and Lucy Moss's real middle names. But like the whole of Why Am I So Single focuses on this joke, this running gag that it's all inspired and all the names are inspired by Oliver. So I feel like I can't really say anything but Oliver. Their favourite musical is Oliver, not just because of the vibes, but also because of literally what they say in the musical. Like, I can't argue a different one. I could give you other musicals that they would enjoy, but it would be ineffective because they literally say in the musical what their favourite one is. Elphaba from Wicked. Look, I really wanted a better example here, but instead of leaning on any character trait that Elphaba has, I've instead gone for her love of animals and said she'd probably really like cats. Hold on. I know you're kicking off right now, but stop. Okay, Elphaba is an animal lover. Elphaba loves, like, talking animals. And I don't know many other musicals where you can find talking animals but cats. Do they talk in the 101 Dalmatians musical? I know they have like a bunch of puppets, but do the Dalmatians actually talk? I haven't seen it yet. I assume to make 101 Dalmatians work, they would have to speak, so maybe Elphaba would like 101 Dalmatians? A bunch of dogs fighting back against an evil woman who wants to kill them. That's the plot of Wicked, right? Then again, would Elphaba find it insensitive that, you know, all of this oppression is happening to the animals, and then there's also a musical where a bunch of non-animals are pretending to be animals? Would Elphaba find that offensive? Oh no, I think I've talked myself out of cats for Elphaba. I don't have any other examples. What am I going to do? I mean, Elphaba is constantly fighting oppression. I mean, that's the thing. Like, she's kind of painted as this huge villain when she's just trying to stand up for what she believes in. So maybe another musical with a character kind of fighting for that style of thing would work, maybe? I don't know. Give me a musical about, like, a character fighting a system, and I feel like Elphaba would be able to relate. No matter what the oppression was, I feel like Elphaba would be able to relate. I mean, it's the whole reason why she relates to Dillamond in the musical, because she faces similar things and she stands up against that oppression. I feel like Elphaba would enjoy a musical that is all about that. Suffs! Elphaba would love Suffs. Elphaba would absolutely love Suffs. There we go. That's what I'm claiming. Elphaba would love Suffs. The two lead characters from the Book of Mormon are really easy to do. Elder Cunningham, you give him anything nerdy. Obviously, we could just take an adaptation of something that he enjoys from the show. I mean, I feel like Cunningham would enjoy, like, a lot of the Star Kid parodies, but also I feel like Elder Cunningham would enjoy the Lord of the Rings musical. Obviously, there's flaws in the adaptation of that because they're trying to fit, like, 3 books into one musical, and I feel like Cunningham would probably, like, not appreciate some of the things they leave out. So, like, I feel like he'd enjoy that musical, but it may not be his, like, favorite. He might enjoy something a bit more like Eugenia, something about someone who is quite nerdy standing up. I feel like he'd enjoy the comic book themes of that musical as well. Yeah, you know what, I'm gonna go with Eugenius for Elder Cunningham. Elder Price, really easy. He loves Orlando. And why does he love Orlando? He loves SeaWorld and Disney. He would love the Disney park musicals. Whatever musical they have, he is there with his little Mickey ears. He's loving it. Whether that be Finding Nemo, whether that be the Toy Story musical that they've made, whether that be like whatever they're putting on at the Disney parks, Elder Price is there. That's his favorite. Shakespeare from Something Rotten has one defining character trait, and that is his narcissism. He's such a narcissist. Like, he loves himself so much. So his favorite musical would need to be something that is based on one of his own works. I don't think he'd like Anne Juliet, right? And I'm going to argue this because it criticizes him. And the version of Shakespeare that we get in Something Rotten would not like that. The version of Shakespeare in Something Rotten is like so up himself, so egotistical. I feel like any minor criticism would make him angry. I feel like he would walk out of Anne Juliet the second Anne Hathaway pitches to rewrite Romeo and Juliet. So let's instead go for something that is based on his work. Maybe something like Kiss Me Kate? I feel like he'd have a lot of fun with Kiss Me Kate. I feel like he would see all the moments where it's like referencing his own piece and he'd be eating it up, you know? I feel like maybe he'd enjoy Kiss Me Kate. Or, you know, beyond that, any other musical that is kind of just a Shakespeare story told on stage. Maureen from Rent is a diva. She is a true diva. And I feel like she would enjoy something like Sunset Boulevard. That is also about a diva. I feel like Maureen really loves performing. I feel like she's going to be someone with a lot of like great musical knowledge. I feel like she's someone who, if you ask her about musicals, she knows what she's talking about. I feel like Sunset has a lot that could appeal to her, honestly. That's the vibe I'm getting. You know, someone determined to put on a show, despite, you know, people around her saying that she can't. I feel like that relates to Maureen's story in Rent, you know, the protest that she does. Can you see the parallels? I don't know, this one's a bit of a stretch. Matilda? Okay, the thing about Matilda is that she loves books. She loves books. So I feel like it's easy to picture with any kind of adaptation. And because of her advanced reading level and her intelligence, I feel like you can even give her something that is a bit more challenging. I feel like she would really love Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. You could not tell me that Matilda has not read the entirety of War and Peace and understands exactly why a musical adaptation of War and Peace has to be only like 70 pages of the entire book. Matilda would understand. Matilda would get that. I feel like Matilda would really love the lyrics of that musical, would really love the music. I mean, she also speaks about Charles Dickens a lot, so maybe she'd enjoy something like Oliver as well, but I honestly think like the more intelligent the musical Matilda would enjoy the most, I feel like she's going to really enjoy Great Comet. Roxy Hart is someone I struggled with a little bit because she's got a lot of different, you know, intricacies about her character, you know. But I think the main thing I want to focus on, less than her actual character traits and like the actions that she does and the murder, is actually like her flashy showbiz side. She wants to be in vaudeville, she wants to perform, she loves that kind of style of things. I first thought of something like 42nd Street, but I honestly think that's a little bit too sanitized for someone like Roxy Hart. I feel like she wants something with a little bit more grit. And the thing that I felt was a nice step up from that was Sweet Charity. Obviously, very different eras. Sweet Charity dives into more of like a 60s sound. Obviously, wouldn't be around when Roxy Hart is alive, but we're not really taking any of that into account. We're going to dive into more historical characters later, and it's like, I don't care. I'm going to make all of these characters love modern musicals. I feel like, you know, Roxy would see a lot of herself in a role like Charity. I feel like Roxy would love to play a role like Charity. And I feel like if she enjoys like the showbiz and the musical and side of things, I feel like Roxy Hart from Chicago would really enjoy something like Sweet Charity. Lydia, really easy. I don't think Lydia is much of a musical girly because, you know, she's more into the macabre and more into the darkness and the spookiness and all of that jazz. She's a Tim Burton character, so we've got to kind of assign her something that has Tim Burton vibes. The only thing I feel like she would really attach to is something like Sweeney Todd. I feel like that's got a very different musical style that maybe she'd enjoy. I feel like obviously the dark themes of that and like the murder and the brutality, I feel like Lydia would enjoy. I think there's other musicals that have dark themes. I've assigned some other ones to some characters later and we'll get to them, don't you worry. But I feel like a lot of those have a couple of things I don't think Lydia would really appreciate as much as something like Sweeney Todd. Beetlejuice, on the other hand, now we know a canonical musical or two that Beetlejuice doesn't like, because obviously the musical itself takes a dig at Brigadoon, with Beetlejuice just straight up saying to the audience that he hates Brigadoon, and this was also changed on Broadway when they announced closure and Music Man was going to take that theatre. They changed that line to Music Man. So canonically, Beetlejuice hates Brigadoon and hates the Music Man. This choice is a little bit wild, and I don't know what people are going to think about it, but I'm going to justify it. I think Beetlejuice would love Avenue Q. There is one point in the musical that I'm going to use to justify this, and I don't know if it's absolutely a stretch. I don't know why I'm saying I don't know if it is. It is absolutely a stretch. But Beetlejuice is someone who understands that sometimes puppet shows can be sad. And what's a sad puppet show? Avenue Q. I'm sorry, I'm a genius. If y'all aren't appreciating that, you clearly haven't seen Beetlejuice enough. I don't think Beetlejuice would love everything about Avenue Q. I feel like Beetlejuice is a character who's like kind of he's an agent of chaos, like myself. I can relate to Beetlejuice in that way of like he enjoys the kind of the craziness and chaos, and you know, maybe there's a musical that would appeal to him more on those kind of vibes, but I feel like Avenue Q would kind of lean into his style of humor a bit. I feel like Beetlejuice would enjoy a comedy. And what is the opposite of Music Man and Brigadoon if it's not something like Avenue Q, okay? Norma Desmond from Sunset Boulevard, I feel like her favorite musicals would only be musicals that she could see herself being in. And if we're taking a character like Norma Desmond, she's a character who is very complex. She's a character who, she's at that age where society often forgets about women, but there's also an age where there's some great female characters as well. I feel like Norma Desmond would love a character like Rose from Gypsy, and I feel like that would be her favorite musical. Only because she could see herself playing Rose. She is right now going to Mr. DeMille and trying to convince him to do a film version of Gypsy so she can play Rose. I think those characters have a lot of similarities. They're both kind of people pushing for one idea. They're quite selfish in their approach of that and kind of forget about the people around them. I feel like Norma would relate a lot to Gypsy. Gatsby from the Great Gatsby musical. Now, we could take his love for parties, we could take his love for like the spectacle of that, but actually I don't think Gatsby really loves the parties. If you look at Gatsby, the only reason he's throwing these parties is so he can get Daisy. So would an extravagant musical be to his taste? I actually don't think. Do you know what I do think he would enjoy? I feel like he'd enjoy a musical about a young man who is in love with a girl who is stuck in a relationship with another man that she doesn't love. That sounds very much like Gatsby's storyline with Daisy and Tom in The Great Gatsby. Do you know what other musical has basically that exact plot points? Moulin Rouge. Moulin Rouge has a very, very similar, like, love triangle in a way that I feel like there's a lot about Moulin Rouge that Gatsby would appreciate. And also, I just like the irony of the fact that both Christian and Gatsby have been played by Jamie Moscato. So it's just even more perfect. You cannot tell me that that is not perfect. Bonnie from Bonnie and Clyde. Okay, this is also a stretch, but if we take, you know, Bonnie's interests in the musical, you know, she loves Clara Bow, she loves that old school Hollywood style. I feel like there's different musicals that we can associate to that. She'd probably enjoy a film like Singing in the Rain, but I want to pitch instead the musical adaptation of The Wild Party. Which one? Doesn't matter. There's two, they have the same name, pick either, because the film version of that starred Clara Bow. Obviously the musical doesn't, but I feel like Bonnie as such a big fan of Clara Bow, would most likely appreciate a musical like The Wild Party that's taking that style of Hollywood and adapting that to the stage. I feel like she would enjoy that a lot. Surprisingly, one of the most suggested favourite characters from you guys was Hester Leggett from Operation Mincemeat. Now, I feel like there's a lot about Hester that makes her a really interesting character. You know, she's very... she's quite old school in her approach, especially at the start. And I feel like there's points in the musical where she grows and she like shows her reasoning of why she's like that. She comes off first quite stern, but I do think despite all of that, Hester would love an old school style of musical. I feel like she's of that era that she would probably enjoy something like Brigadoon. Just don't introduce her to Beetlejuice because they would have a big old argument, okay? I feel like there's a lot of like old school musicals that you could assign to Hester Leggett. You know, you can give her like any of the classics, and I feel like I could see a good reasoning for why that she would appreciate that style of musical. But I don't know, I feel like the vibes of Brigadoon, I feel like if I think of like classic musical theatre, if I'm thinking like old musical theatre, I don't know why, but my brain always goes to Brigadoon. So I'm going with Brigadoon. I'm sticking with Brigadoon. Maybe, honestly, I could honestly even pitch like Pirates of Penzance. I feel like she'd probably really appreciate that. I can see Hester, you know, working around MI5, just humming, I am the very model lover, modern Major General. Like, tell me you can't. I feel like she's like typing up her memos, she's working on some paperwork and humming that to herself. I could see it. Hermes from Hadestown, I got so many suggestions of Hadestown characters. I've only picked Hermes today because I feel like Hermes was the one where I had the clearest pitch. I don't know if people are going to think I'm cheating, right? Because this is a musical that the actor who originated Hermes was in. Andre de Shields did star in this musical, but I'm going to justify it because I feel like Hermes would really enjoy The Wiz. First of all, musical styles I feel like matches a little bit. I'm thinking jazzy, I'm thinking soul, you know. Well, it's not a one-to-one comparison. You can see like pieces of each other in each musical. But you know, Hermes is the god of travelers. He is someone who looks after people going on journeys. That's why, you know, he looks after Orpheus. That's why he knows the way to Hadestown. That's why he guides Orpheus that way. That's his role. And, you know, a character like Dorothy in both The Wizard of Oz and The Wiz goes on that kind of journey. But I feel like I would say The Wiz fits stylistically more to Hadestown than the content of The Wizard of Oz, that I feel like The Wiz would appeal a little bit more to a character like Hermes. But honestly, I do think The Wiz fits not just like an Andre de Steele style Hermes, but also like a Mel LeBarry style Hermes as well. Now, Next to Normal. I was expecting different characters from Next to Normal, if I'm being perfectly honest. I was expecting a Gabe, I was expecting a Diana maybe, but I actually saw some love for Henry. And I feel like Henry is a character I want to do because it's challenging, right? He's a character who doesn't seem like he would love a musical. Like, he steps into the musical and he's just immediately like teenage angst. Like, his first song, he's literally singing like the planet is boiling, it's broken, everything is dead and depressing, and there's nothing good in this world except you, and I would be perfect for you. Like, that's the entire first song that Henry gets. He's very intense. So I wanted to find a musical with like a good amount of like teenage angst, but also in a style that I feel like Henry would enjoy. Because, you know, you can have something like Dear Evan Hansen that I feel like works for like the angsty side, but I don't think works as much stylistically. I don't think the music that Henry would enjoy is found in a musical like Dear Evan Hansen. And I'd say similar things about Heathers. I'd say similar things about Be More Chill, like that teen style of musical. Do you know what I think he would vibe with though? Carrie. Carrie is dark. I feel like take the first song from Carrie, take In, because Carrie is not a musical that I like love, but I feel like has a lot of like great songs within it. I feel like In is so Henry's vibe. That like rebellion, that angst, that anger at society, anger at school, anger at the systems that is presented through a song like In, I feel like it's kind of Henry's vibe. And, you know, I think Henry is someone who would probably enjoy a bit of Stephen King. I think Henry is someone who could appreciate that. I feel like Henry would enjoy something like Carrie. Paulette is our next character from Legally Blonde. Now, I'm very proud of this. What does Paulette love? What is the one thing that when we first meet Paulette, what is the thing that she confides in Elle that she loves? Ireland. So I think it just makes sense that her favourite musical would be one that's set in Ireland. I think she's got a very romantic sense of Ireland. Obviously, her song relates a lot to, like, Ireland as a place, but also, like, how the Irish love you. So maybe a romantic musical set in Ireland? Maybe something like Once. Obviously, Once isn't entirely set in Ireland, but honestly, you cannot tell me that Paulette would not love Guy. You cannot tell me that Paulette is not fanning herself down, trying to calm herself when she is watching this Irish busker, just casually playing guitar. Oh my god, Paulette would be in love. I feel like Once makes a lot of sense for a character like Paulette. Now, I'm including this because it's very funny, right? Because I didn't explain on Instagram what I was doing. I just asked for people's favourite characters. And someone said this character. And if there's any character who just does not work for this style of video, it is this character. It's Paul from The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals. How am I meant to assign a favourite musical to a character whose main character traits is that he doesn't like musical theatre? Oh god. But I mean, even if you hate every musical, there's gonna be one that you hate the least. So you know what? I'm taking on the challenge. Despite canonically Paul hating every musical, let's find the one he hates the least. So I think you've got to find a musical that, you know, you take your boyfriend to who doesn't really like musical theatre. That's the kind of vibe that we're going for here, right? That's what we've got to find. Trying to think of that, then, you know, there's a musical like Book of Mormon, which has a comedic style that you typically bring people to so that they can kind of forget about the music of it all and just focus on, like, the book. Maybe a play with music would be more of his style? I don't know. I would say something like Blood Brothers, but honestly, the music in Blood Brothers, I feel like would very much irritate someone who doesn't like musical theatre. But then again, I say that as someone who likes musical theatre, but doesn't like the music in Blood Brothers. I feel like Mormon's probably the best kind of style. I feel like Mormon is like, you know, there's enough in there that he would enjoy, that he would be able to forgive a lot of the musicality of it. I feel like I would say Book of Mormon. I feel like that would be Paul's favourite musical by default. Damien from Mean Girls. Now, what's very interesting is Damien doesn't really associate himself with, like, the musical theatre kids. Obviously, in a song like Where Would You Belong, they literally introduce the musical kids with full-on, like, musical t-shirts. They're wearing Hamilton, they're wearing Six, they're wearing whatever. And, like, he's definitely not a part of that group. So I don't think Damien would love musical theatre per se. Maybe he enjoys, like, the odd musical, but he's not like a musical girly. You know, despite being a very clear stereotype of a gay character, he's not a musical theatre girly. But what he does show interest in is a lot of different pop music. He shows a clear love for Beyonce. He shows a clear love for drag as well, like the RuPaul t-shirt. I think it's RuPaul t-shirt he wears in the musical. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I would honestly say, like, a jukebox musical would probably be his vibe. I feel like he'd enjoy Anne Juliet, but the one I want to go with specifically for Damien would be something like The Cher Show. I feel like the fashion of it all, especially if we're going like the Broadway version that he would have been able to see being in the States, oh my god, he would live. Dougal from Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York is golden retriever vibes, right? I feel like Dougal finds the joy in anything that he goes to see. I feel like he would be very easy to please. And I don't think there is a musical that, when I think of easy to please, stands out more than Starlight Express. You cannot tell me that this golden retriever of a man would not enjoy the skating train show. Flashy lights, big set. Take him to Germany, he'd have a blast. Take him to London, he'd have an equal amount of a blast. Like the inflatable costumes, Dougal would live. Dougal would be having the best time. Robin would absolutely hate it. Robin would not like Starlight Express, but Dougal, he's having the best time of his life. Catherine Plummer, very easy, I feel. You know, Catherine Plummer in Newsies is a character who's, you know, constantly fighting for herself in a male-dominated world, even more so. She's finding her place in a system where she's constantly overlooked. You cannot tell me that she would not enjoy Legally Blonde, for the very similar themes that she goes through every single day, trying to make a name for herself in the writing world, in the publishing world as a woman. I feel like she brings a lot to a musical like that. A lot that she can really, really relate to. Javert, Les Mis? Okay. Stay with me on this one. Catch Me If You Can. Right. Hold on. I'm going to explain. Catch Me If You Can, if you don't know, is a musical about the true story of Frank Abagnale. He was a famous con artist who constantly used bad checks and fake IDs and managed to get himself into places. He pretended to be a lawyer, a pilot, like he was getting himself into places that you wouldn't believe. And he was constantly passing these bad checks. Now, you hear immediately a musical that is aligning you with this character, and you think, why would Javert like this? Javert is a man of law. He is a man that firmly believes if you have done bad things, you are a bad person forever. He has that very stern and very clear moral standpoint in a musical like Les Mis. Despite all of the good things that Jean Valjean shows, despite the fact he's trying to help Fantine, trying to help Cosette, trying to help Marius every single time, Javert is adamant that he can never be a good man because he's done one bad thing. That is Javert's whole stance in life. And when that viewpoint is completely tested, he can't live with himself anymore. He would rather pass away than live in a world where Jean Valjean could be a good man, which makes him a really interesting and complex character. So I think he would watch a musical like Catch Me If You Can, but he would solely root for the cop. He would solely root for the character who is chasing Frank Abagnale. Because at the end of the musical, who wins? Because Frank realizes his time is up and gives himself into the police. The police wins. And while I feel like Javert wouldn't love the fact that, you know, Frank is kind of forgiven and, you know, they work together and he pays off his debts, I feel like Javert would enjoy the fact that he's watching a musical where the character he believes is the good guy. Well, you know, the cop isn't bad in the musical, neither is Frank. It's not very black and white how they present it, which makes it really interesting to watch. But I feel like, you know, he would see it as black and white. He would see it as Frank is bad, the cop is good. And the fact that the cop does eventually get what he wants and Frank is served that justice, I feel like Javert would like that. Is that what he's meant to get as an audience member? Maybe not, but that's what Javert would take away from that. Dee Allen from The Prom, I feel like you could just say any musical she's been in. She is a Broadway star, she is a diva, she is an icon, a legend, and indeed the moment, and, you know, there's loads of musicals that she mentions during that show. She mentions Evita, she mentions Beauty and the Beast, and I feel like those two are very good and clear musicals I feel like she'd really enjoy. Honestly, if you're going to push me on one, I'd say Evita. I'd say that Dee Allen would really love Evita, but I feel like Dee is someone who would bring a lot to every role that she plays. She very clearly, despite her egotistical nature, clearly has a love for the genre of musical theatre and an appreciation for this art. Like when she's coming to this town and standing up for Emma, she mentions all of these musicals. She name drops all of them. She clearly has a connection to them, that she appreciates and enjoys them, even if it's for, you know, bragging about what she's done before. I feel like she has an appreciation for the genre that I feel like a show like Evita would really appeal to her. Sally Bowles. Okay, Sally is an interesting character, right? Because Sally... Ooh, how do I phrase this? You need to give Sally something flashy, something campy, and something where she would completely ignore any of the political themes behind it. Like, If you gave her a musical like Chicago, she would just love the dancing. She would ignore all of the socio-political climate of the musical and just focus on, oh, isn't it lovely? Isn't it flashy and camp? And if I'm thinking of a musical that's flashy and camp and matches a style that the club she works in has, would it be weird if I said that I think she would really enjoy Rocky Horror? Because I feel like if I give her anything else, there's too many themes in there that creep in that I think would just go over Sally Bowles' head. She likes to ignore that. That's very much her character, especially in that musical. As the threat of fascism is rising in the background, she's plugging her ears and going la 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 la. I feel like Rocky Horror is camp. I feel like Rocky Horror is weird. I feel like Rocky Horror is just a musical that probably appealed to Sally Bowles, and she would just go, oh, how lovely. Honestly, I feel like she would also, enjoy shouting along and joining in. I feel like she'd be that kind of audience member. And finally, for this video, let's explore every single sixth queen. I got people suggesting every single sixth queen, so you know what? Let's do them all. Now, the thing about it is that all of the six queens have, like, a musical influence assigned to them, a different pop star that they can relate to, and the actresses who play these roles will inspire their performance by vocally and stylistically. So I feel like there's a lot of them that are very easy to just assign that jukebox musical to, which I've done for, like, one of them, but I've tried to look past that and look more at like the themes. Honestly, what was the biggest help was looking at the song 6, looking at their idealized versions of what their life could be without Henry, and using that and taking a similar style of musical. Aragon, she is someone who is very religious. She's someone who has that appreciation for religion. When she's fantasizing, she's thinking about putting herself into the nunnery again. She's thinking about going there. She's thinking about leading the gospel choir there. And what is a musical that features a character going into a nunnery and leading a gospel choir? Sister Act. I feel like Aragon would enjoy Sister Act. I can tell you now, that is my favorite one, and it's all downhill from here. Anne Boleyn, I feel like a lot of her character is that kind of rivalry she has with Aragon. If you think of a song like Don't Lose Your Head, it's that constant comparison between the two. So because of that, maybe she'd enjoy another musical about two women who are pitted against each other, but come out with a mutual respect of each other. Maybe something like the musical War Paint, which I understand War Paint isn't a musical that everyone knows about, and if you don't, it's actually a lot of fun. Starred Patti LuPone, and anything Patti LuPone touches is gold. But War Paint explores the rivalry between these two titans of the cosmetic industry. It's Elizabeth Arden and Helena Rubinstein. These two women never actually met each other, if I'm correct, but the musical kind of parallels their journeys together and shows like the clear rivalry they had in their approaches to running their businesses and pitching themselves within that industry. And the musical kind of imagines different time periods and different placements where they might have met and where they're not so different between each other. It's a really interesting musical, actually. And I feel like there's a lot in there that Anne Boleyn could maybe relate to, especially with her rivalry with Aragon, and how that goes from that kind of pitching against each other, and how they actually end up having more of an appreciation for each other. That's a weird pitch, I understand, but honestly, I feel like I've justified it. Jane Seymour, I can't say anything but The Sound of Music. She literally references The Sound of Music in the song 6. She loves Sound of Music. Anne of Cleves was the hardest one. The thing about Anne of Cleves is I need a musical that she could get down to, right? I need a musical that's full of bops, but bops that she would enjoy. Honestly, I know I've said it a lot through this video, but I feel like she'd enjoy Anne Juliet. I feel like if I'm thinking of a musical that is just full of songs that you can stand up and dance to, it is Anne Juliet. I did have some other ideas of pitches, but none of them really feel right. I like the idea of a musical like Lizzie for her, but I honestly feel like that's a little bit too rocky of a style. I feel like she'd appreciate a self-made woman like Annie Londonderry from the musical Ride. But again, I don't think that's a musical style that she would really, really enjoy. I feel like going with Anne Juliet and like the pop vibes and the music of Max Martin, which I don't think Max Martin has ever not written an absolute bop. I feel like that's her jam. That's what she enjoys. Catherine Howard, definitely in the musical is presented as a woman who is constantly being taken advantage of by men. And she's someone who can never really stand up against that. For that reason, I feel like she would enjoy a musical like 9 to 5. A musical that is all about women managing to get one up on this man who is creepy, this man taking advantage of them. I feel like Howard would really appreciate that style. And Catherine Parr, I said there was one, because obviously Catherine Parr, inspired by Alicia Keys, she would probably really like Hell's Kitchen, just from like a musical style, but also I feel like there is another show that I can pitch for her. Because, you know, Catherine Parr, as she presents herself in the musical, she is someone who did a lot more than just her relationship with Henry that history knows her for. She was a writer. She was fighting for herself. She fought for women. She fought for women to be able to get educated. There's so much there within that like final section in I Don't Need Your Love that I feel like that's something that I can pull a different musical out of. I feel like she'd probably relate a lot to a character like Catherine Plummer from Newsies, but I wouldn't say Newsies would be her favourite because I don't think she would relate as much to like the Newsboys storyline in that. So I'll go with Hell's Kitchen for now. I feel like that's a musical that she would enjoy, but I do feel like this is a perfect opportunity to open the doors to you guys. Are there any other musicals that you feel like these characters would really, really enjoy? And have I left any characters off? Who is your favourite musical character and what would be their favourite musical? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me out, helps out the channel. Here's some links to some other videos on screen right now and a link to my Instagram if you'd like to drop me a follow over there. There's other social links and a merch store in the description down below. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.